Hey guys, what's up? It's Darkmech here and welcome back to another video. Today we are covering off the tanks for the moment in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. So the other day I made a first impressions of Alpha video and I spoke about the 3 tanks that I'd played at that stage, which were the Demon Hunter, the Blood DK and the Brewmaster Monk. So I spoke about my initial feels with that. I then got asked to check out the other tanks, how Guardian Druids were going, how Prot Warriors were feeling. So I spent yesterday and most of today pretty much playing through each tank in the open world and dungeons for about 2 to 3 hours each, because I really wanted to try and get a solid feel for sort of how those tanks were and how they were playing at the moment. I also tried to replicate all of the same pulls through the dungeons that I went into, just so I could kind of gauge how that was as well. The only problem is I can't control how good the healer is, or how good the group is, or what group composition I've got, so that kind of alters with that as well, but at least it gives me a ballpark sort of feels for it. Now, the things to really remember here is obviously this is alpha, it could all change tomorrow, it's early alpha, it can all change, but so just take this for what it's worth. So we're going to start off with Guardian Druids. So Guardian Druids, the first thing I notice is the removal of the artifact. No Rage of the Sleeper, Thrash Relic's gone, your damage is really low, it's the worst of all the tanks, and I noticed that in the open world more than anything. So I went and gathered up for one of these quests where you have to get like crocodile things with a dagger and all this kind of stuff. I went and gathered a bunch of them and I actually got murked. I could not kill them. So I really noticed it in that. The other thing I noticed is the lack of frenzied regen charges now. So we're used to having 3 charges, obviously. Now we're back to having 2. The recharge on that is also longer now. So I really found myself waiting on those frenzied regen charges to come back up. So that was a really big thing. I also noticed the GCD change around Incarn and going for a Thrash spam. So in a couple of dungeons I took Incarn and just went for big pulls with Thrash spam. Even though it's only 1 GCD, it's that 1 GC setting up, it actually feels really annoying. So I don't know how other classes are going to go with the GCD change at the moment for offensive abilities, but I certainly noticed that. I did still think Guardian Druid was solid in large pulls with like high Iron Fur stacks. Though it's massively weaker than its Legion iteration. There is a huge difference in that. Some changes from a talent perspective. Guttural Roars has been removed and instead replaced with Tiger Dash. So Tiger Dash activates cat form and increases movement speed by 200%, reducing gradually over 4 seconds. This is a pretty big blow in regards to raid utility that Druids offered with regular Stampeding Roars. Balance Affinity has had a range nerf. It's not huge though, it's 3 yards down from 5, and the rest of the talents pretty much remained unchanged. I think personally my Druid will be seeing even less action than it saw in Legion at this point, even with Werebear being the coolest skin. It was very underwhelming playing Druid, and at the moment I have no real urge to go back and do any more on that Druid in Alpha, at the moment. So moving on to Paladin, so the Prot Pally, straight up again, I noticed that GCD change with Wings and Seraphim. Paladin has really good damage output though, so that sort of hasn't changed from Legion. I can't say the playstyle felt hollow or missing anything without the artifact. Prot Paladin does feel really solid. You know, it felt like it handled damage very well on normal and larger pulls. I don't personally think it felt as strong as Brewmaster or Warrior, but it certainly did feel like it was holding its own and it was in a good position. There have been some changes, so one of the big ones is Shield of the Righteous, so it doesn't actually need a target or to be in melee range to activate now, which is a huge bonus. So the Legion Shield of the Righteous deals holy damage and reduces damage taken factoring in your mastery for 4.5 seconds. The Battle for Azeroth current Shield of the Righteous does holy damage and increases your armor by 345% of your strength for 5 seconds on 3 charges the same. So there's a big difference that's been made around Shield of the Righteous now. Rather than reducing all damage taken, now we're moving to that armor increase because that's pretty much the way tanks are going. A lot of magic damage reduction has been stripped back. On all tanks, the Paladin has probably fared the worst in regards to that though. Ardent Defender and Kings are still the main cooldowns. Ardent Defender is now going to have a longer cooldown though with the removal of the artifact weapon from game. So you're just going to have a flat 2-minute cooldown on that now. Kings is still the same at 5 minutes. There's no change. It's a 50% damage reduction for 8 seconds. The biggest thing I noticed is the Paladin is exposed to magic damage. With that armor change to Shield of the Righteous, in comparison to some of the other tanks who still have some kind of magic damage reduction, it's fairly exposed. You can take Holy Shield, the talent, to try and deal with magic damage better, but then you're going to lose your spinny hammers in doing that, which is probably going to have a large impact on dungeon content. Maybe not so much from a raid boss perspective, and Paladins will be able to take that talent if it stays in this form and still function quite well in magic damage raid fights. Talents wise, guys, there's no changes that I could see at the moment. So that's pretty much it. It felt good. I can't say it felt like astonishingly amazing, or it made me really want to play it, but the Paladin certainly feels like it's in a good position. So next up is the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now, from my opinion, I think at the moment it's the most altered tank spec on Alpha in regards to its feels, and even talent changes and things like that. Straight up, Vengeance Demon Hunter is stupidly strong. It is stupidly strong from a DPS perspective and a self-healing perspective. You really notice the HP spikes. Sometimes you feel like you're on a yo-yo, and it's certainly not as solid as you would expect as Brewmaster, Warrior, Paladin, and things like that in taking face damage, but its self-sustain is beyond amazing. The damage output is on another level, as I said, on large packs. If I wasn't playing like a tool, I was able to melt them in a dungeon environment. If I did make a mistake, I was able to completely recover, and if I was playing well, my HP actually didn't generally drop much. From a rating perspective, in regards to a world prog level, I still think they're going to probably be too spiky to take in regards to that reliable situation over a Brewmaster, a Warrior, or a Prot Paladin, if they can find a way to deal with that magic damage. But from a Mythic Plus dungeon aspect, Vengeance Demon Hunters are looking complete bangers and mash. So there have been a few noteworthy changes around the Demon Hunter. So Demon Spikes has changed. So Legion Demon Spikes at the moment cost 20 pain. They increase parry by 25% and reduce physical damage taken by 30% for 6 seconds. So Battle for Azeroth Demon Spikes in its current iteration has no pain cost, increases armor by 225% of your agility, and increases your parry by 15% for 6 seconds. Empower Wards is gone. You just have a passive now called Demonic Wards. Your tattoos reduce all damage, and that's important, all damage taken by 10%, and increase your stamina by 65% and your armor by 75%. You have another passive as well now called Chaos Brand. Your Fiery Brand increases magic damage taken by the target by 5%. Talent changes wise, there have been quite a few. Charred Flesh is a new talent making its appearance on the level 102 row at the moment. It has replaced Fell Eruption. So Charred Flesh, Fiery Brand increases the fire damage your abilities deal to the target by 20%. So this is an import of the artifact trait Fiery Demise. Fracture is still on the level 104 row, but it has changed in regards to how it works, and the best way I marry this up is like Devastator. It replaces Shear now, which actually makes the playstyle feel fantastic. It generates 25 pain per hit, it has 2 charges, and it generates 2 fragments. This, for me, makes the playstyle feel really good, and I'm actually really enjoying playing Demon Hunter at the moment. Soul Rending now gives a 5% leech and a 25% leech while in meta. If you can't remember, at the moment you only get the leech whilst in meta form, and it's 50%. Gluttony is another new talent appearing on the level 108 row. Gluttony consuming a soul fragment has a chance to activate meta for 5 seconds, which again is an artifact trait import of Fueled by Pain. Spirit Bomb has a slight nerf. It's been nerfed to healing for 10% instead of 20%. However, it only consumes 3 soul fragments now within 25 yards rather than all the soul fragments within 25 yards. The last talent change to appear so far is Void Reaver. It's on the level 110 row. Void Reaver, enemies struck by Soul Cleave deal a percentage less damage to you for 4 seconds. Now, I'm a bit curious about this one because with Spirit Bomb, I'm still not even touching Soul Cleave. And whether I'm just playing it really wrong, I don't know. But I'm curious as to what they'll do with that to try and maybe make Soul Cleave worth pressing. Because at the moment, I am just Spirit Bomb happy and I don't need to do anything else. But maybe that's just playing in normal dungeons, and when you go to another level, you actually need to play it differently. We will see. Next up, guys, we have the Protection Warrior. So the Protection Warrior, it feels amazing. It's got 2 new raid buffs. So Battle Shout is a raid buff increasing attack power by 10% for 1 hour, and Rallying Cry is a 15% HP increase to all party or raid members for 10 seconds. So straight away, great utility coming from the Prot Warrior. They are ridiculously solid. To me, they feel much better than the Paladin. Shield block has changed, so the Legion shield block that you're used to now is 15 rage to activate with a 6-second uptime. The Battle for Azeroth shield block at the moment is a shield block change of 35 rage to activate with a 4-second uptime. You still keep the booster shield slam damage from this, and it's still reduced. The recharge on it is still reduced with haste. Ignore Pain has also changed, and it has changed for the gigantic better. It is a 12-second cooldown now. It is not reduced by haste. When activated, you will get 4 seconds of 60% damage reduction, and it will reduce your rage instead. This is an insane button to press at the moment. Spell Reflect is still present. It only reduces magic damage taken by 15% now for 5 seconds. It is still on a 25-second cooldown. Shockwave only stuns for 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds now. There is no CD reduction for hitting 3 targets at the moment, so it is just on a flat 30-second cooldown. Thunderclap slow has been reduced to 20%, down from 50%, and Demo Shout is now on a 1-minute cooldown instead of a 1.5-minute CD. Talent changes wise, Inspiring Presence is gone with a new talent coming soon. Otherwise, the rest is all unchanged. So yeah, the Warrior felt amazing. It felt super, super solid, and I think it's going to have a real life if it stays in this kind of form in Mythic Plus. 2 great buffs it brings to the group, a stun. The Ignore Pain change makes it really solid, and even from a rating perspective, obviously. So the Warrior is setting up, if it continues along this path, to be really crazy. Next up, my current main, the Blood DK, or my current main once again. So the Blood DK, straight up, I don't think losing the artifact makes Blood DK feel overly different. From a gameplay perspective, let's say, you know, you certainly notice losing Soul Drinker from the artifact in regards to the maximum HP you're able to get, the Vampiric Fangs relics in regards to boosting Vamp Blood, you have relics to boost your Death Strike heals. You certainly notice those aspects behind it, but the playstyle remains relatively unchanged, and Blood DK still feels very strong. The only thing I don't like about Blood is the same gripe that I had at the start of Legion, at lower gear levels and lower haste levels, is how slow it feels. And most of the time, you feel like you are waiting on rune regeneration just to hit Marrow Rend, and by the time you get around to pressing it again, you've got to press it again anyway to get the benefit of Ossuary and Foul Bulwark and things like that, because it's so slow in getting those charges up and losing those stacks of Bone Shield. I have to say the ability to slow and kite on the DK is like nothing else that I've seen on the tanks at the moment. Kiting with D&D on the Death Knight feels fantastic and feels like it gives you a lot of control when you overpull. The damage output on AoE felt exceptional as well. Death's Advance is back in the game, has been altered for 10 seconds. You cannot be slowed below 100% when activated. You are immune to knockback effects and resist force movement effects by 80%. Death Strike now also heals for 30%, up from 20% from the last 5 seconds of damage taken. Talents wise, the same, though there looks like there's going to be some changes coming to Spectral Deflection. It just says that on the tab and there's nothing actually in regards to that further yet. All in all, I think Blood is tracking along fine and dandy. I still think utility-wise, mass grip, res, it's still going to be the king of 5-mans. I don't know if I don't think it's going to overtake Warriors and Monks in a rating sense, but still super early days. But for me at the moment, I think Warriors and Monks are shaping up to be super strong again from that standpoint. But I think Vengeance Demon Hunters and Blood DKs are certainly going to be the main feature of 5-mans again. So last one, guys, the Brewmaster Monk. So this is actually probably my favorite tank to play on Alpha at the moment. I think Brewmaster's in an incredibly strong position right now. It's able to chalk out very decent damage. The survival on big dungeon pulls, I never actually feel like I'm in danger of dying, unless I don't have a healer, of course, because self-sustain is for pussies. So you really do notice the lack of self-sustain still on a Brewmaster, but its ability to smooth out damage is the same. It is unparalleled. Having no offensive CD activation like Avatar or Recklessness or Wings and Seraphim, you really don't have that GCD issue, so you don't notice that sort of stall, and it's the same on the Blood DK as well. Some of the big changes to come from Brewmasters is Iron Skin Brews uptime is now 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds, which it is in Legion. It increases damage delayed by stagger by 30% now instead of 35%. Its recharge is still reduced by haste, but it's had 5 seconds knocked off its cooldown in battle for Azeroth from Legion. Purifying Brew now purifies 50% of damage delayed with stagger versus the live version at the moment, which we clear 65% of damage delayed. Keep in mind though that 65% is obviously made up of our artifacts, so we're just losing that and going back to normal, so to speak. Stagger for magic damage has been reduced, so on live at the moment it's 40% flat magic damage via stagger. It's 56%, sorry, magic damage reduction with Mystic Vitality on stagger. We are now currently on Alpha at 20% flat magic damage reduction with stagger and 28% with Mystic Vitality. So there's a sizable drop in our ability to mitigate magic damage as Brewmasters. There's also a new passive called Mystic Touch. Your damage weakens the target, increasing physical damage they take by 5%. And Breath of Fire reduces damage dealt to you now, which is an artifact bake-in of Hot Blooded. So targets affected by Keg Smash will burn for extra damage and reduce damage dealt to you by 5% for 12 seconds. Talent changes wise we've seen, so Leg Sweep is actually baseline now on Brewmaster Monks. Leg Sweep icon is still in the talent tree and is now called Tiger Tail Sweep. If you take that, it increases the range on Leg Sweep and reduces its cooldown by 10 seconds. This is actually really strong. You can actually take that talent and get the benefit of more Leg Sweeps and a bigger range, or you can actually use this to take Ring of Peace, which in dungeon applications having a Leg Sweep and Ring of Peace is going to be exceptionally powerful. Talents wise, pretty much unchanged. Well, nothing that I noticed. Brewmaster, as I said, felt super strong. I would put this on par with Warrior as a raid tank at the moment, and I think it's going to be really good in Mythic Plus as well. It obviously doesn't have the self-sustain though for Mythic Plus in regards to allowing your healer to do more DPS. It doesn't have a battle res and it doesn't offer a lot of utility, but it does offer that 5% extra physical damage with Mystic Touch. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out as we continue through Alpha and things like that. So that is pretty much it for a tank comparison review, whatever you would like to call this. I don't think it's really worth putting rankings or weights on tanks this early into the piece. However, I know people will ask for it. So at the moment, from a rating perspective, it's definitely Warriors, Brewmasters, and maybe Paladins or Blood DKs for third. I don't really know, but I think Warriors and Brewmaster feel top. From a dungeon perspective, Blood DK and Vengeance Demon Hunter are 1 and 2, and then I would put Warrior and Brewmaster somewhere next. Probably Warrior, then Brewmaster, just from the utility from the Warrior. But that is it, guys. Let me know if there's anything else that you want to check out, if you've got any more questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for taking the time to check out the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. See you guys.